Hello and welcome to the Gooners Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where we today will actually pod and not just bring you 15 seconds of shenanigans and tomfoolery. Mike, you skinny bastard, how are ya?
I'm good. I'm so skinny now. I only weigh 800 pounds instead of 900 pounds.
You know, no one texted this morning with their Monday weigh-ins. Did you drop the 50-pound mark?
I have burst through the 50-pound mark. I've lost 52 pounds in 55 days. I basically just stopped eating beer all the time and Baconators, and it's just coming flying off. So
I mean, as far as that works.
By the time the season starts, I should be down to 49 pounds. But for the time being, I'm still everyone's favorite fat lump from America. Yeah, bruv. Yeah. So happy Father's Day, Andy. Yesterday, even though we're not 100% sure you're actually the father, as Danny mentioned in our chat yesterday.
That's very true.
Yeah, but I still think he's mine because he's way too cute to be yours.
Wow.
It's our fourth season. I have a feeling that we're going to finally get it right. The first three seasons were just practice. The 150 shows we've done, we're just kind of getting our chops together. But even though Arsenal had absolutely no big announcements since the end of the season, we at the Gooners Pod have a bunch of big announcements to make today. So are you ready to get started with the first one?
I am not entirely sure what both of them are. So yeah.
This is classic organization. Andy, it is the transfer market, and because I'm not Stan Kroenke, I have pulled money out of my other podcast to finance this one and buy new talent.
Oh.
And man, we've made a huge splash in the podcast transfer market this summer.
We have.
There's actually a couple free transfers, but we went overboard on the wage packets. Okay, there are no wage packets. We just have the ability to gain new exposure for these gentlemen to literally fives of new people. But we did finally get it over the line. Andy, we're growing.
We are
not just in the pants, but we're adding a new show to our channel. Are we not?
We are adding it. Just get on with it, Mike.
Well, I'm grafting. I'm trying to,
respect.
We're grafting. So we've added two outstanding football minds, two gloriously attractive young men. Both of them have bodies that were just made for Pornhub. So we've already got that link up. Opinions that are super opinion-y. And we're excited to add them to the channel for a weekly preview show to offset the shit that Andy and I do each week and get some actual credibility. So without further ado, Drew Thompson, welcome to the podcast.
Mike, thanks for having me back. Andy, good to see you. I just want to say I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through a whole season with the amount of piss takes you guys are going to put us through.
Oh, you're not going to take too much piss. We're going to call you the catheter.
We're going to have to go with a loan with a view to buy after one season and see how we do. That's going to be the new plan.
I think that'll work. Speaking of piss takes, I do have a formal introduction for you. So without any further ado, we are thrilled to first welcome Der Kommissar of Dossier, the Mezzanozel of sports writing, because that's supposed to be a good thing. He puts the anal in analytical. He put the D in dossier. The rut-row in thorough. He's the moose of tactical news. It's Drew Thompson. How's that? Did I do you justice?
It's taken it 15 seconds for me to already be questioning my decisions. So I think you're doing. I think you're doing a good job thus far.
10 seconds quicker than most people.
Yes, I better scale it. This is the reason why we've never had a person come on the podcast twice.
Fair enough.
Did you have a good Father's Day yesterday, Drew?
I'm not a father, contrary to popular belief.
That you know of.
Yeah, no, it was good. Everything that I can be expected for. So, yes, Carrie is exactly correct. I'm currently second-guessing my entire life choice right now. So,
well, we don't want to do that. I've come on too strong again. And speaking of Carrie, the chat, we've got Archie, we've got David Ziegler, we've got which of David Ziegler's identities is he having today? Bulgarian Gooner, Mr. Arsenal Podcast, Ryan, way to go. Carrie, Bulgarian Gooner again, so I don't really need to mention him again. Screen Boy's in here, and Andy's checking in. We also will be having a partner in crime, and I don't mean crime like normal crime, Drew. I mean, I just
what I'd be good at. So
don't put words in my mouth. I don't automatically link you together with crime. Come on. So Drew introduced us to a guy a few months back, a man who I gave some very sage life advice to, and then completely ignored it recently. A man who shares his contempt with mine for Mr. Enos Stanley Kroenke, but also our contempt for people constantly whining about him not spending his own money on players. He's not here yet. He might join us by the end of the podcast, but it's Nate Smith of You Are My Arsenal, who's not with us because he's out beating people up who are talking about a $40 million transfer kitty. So we will, clearly show you much more respect than we have already throughout the season. You're the yin to our football yang because you actually know stuff about football. So we're still weeks away from debuting everything. It's still in the concept phase, but no pressure. Tell everyone exactly about the new show, Drew.
Well, it's in its infancy, so we don't even really have a name fleshed out. But essentially, it's going to be every week. Nate and I are going to be doing match previews, and we're going to be doing a lot of tactical analysis in terms of that. Things like breaking down our opponents, looking at our run of form, maybe things that Unai could be doing to focus in on who we have in a particular setting, highlighting certain players, their contributions, how they fit into certain systems. And maybe one of the trials might be is when we start finally making some signings this summer, which I'm sure we'll go on to later, is similar to what Tom has been doing in his show, where he's been profiling players and what they've brought to the table, like Saliba at Saint Etienne and Praetnage at Sampdoria. He's been looking at how they do. What we could maybe go to delve into a little bit deeper and invite Tom on as the first guest is to talk about how they fit in to the tactical schematics under Unai moving forward, maybe some changes that might have to be looked at to make these players really come to the fore, that kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of tactical analysis. It's, we're going to want obviously some fan involvement, some questions.
User involvement. We don't have fans like Tom.
Fair. Good point.
Maybe when you guys start, we'll have some fans.
So it's going to be a lot of that. And through the discussions that you and I have had, and I have had with Andy and with all our WhatsApp group chats, I think it'd be a good opportunity to at least really sort of try to get more things to break down Arsenal. And I think there's a lot of people who really want to see, analysis. It's something that I do in my writing. It's something I do when I coach. Nate does as well. So I think it's something we can really have a lot of fun with. Try to help you guys keep growing and give you guys the exposure that you deserve. So
it will, man. And all kidding aside, you and Nate are not Nader, but Nate are really, really good at what you do. Great writers. We're hitching ourselves on to the Drew Thompson, Nate Smith bandwagon, so that when you guys are, the kings of media.
When I'm 60, it'll be down the line, 25-year goal.
Howard Stern's the king of media, and he's like 79 years old at this point. So,
touche.
Well, you can remember us and how you used to do our podcast channel before we chased you away with all the piss taking. So, another announcement before we get to actual stuff is, and we're going to tie two things together here. After the season ended, we did a major subscriber drive through DMs to all of our Twitter followers. So we appreciate first you putting up with that. Secondly, it bore or whatever, a lot of fruit, AF. So as about a week ago, our modest little podcast pushed through the 1,000 subscriber mark. It's about 1,100 now, which, for us is a big deal. We realize that, other channels may have hundreds of thousands of people subscribing, and that's great, but we didn't really ever think we'd have more than 10 watching us. So it's pretty nice to have that couple thousand people watching in every week on the platforms. It's also good for the ego, but it gives us something that we can do now that we couldn't do before. Speaking of which, the very first donation, bruv, has come in from Screamboy8. And
wow. Thank you.
And I got to say that I was just about to call some attention to this and tell you why we're happy about this. It's not the same reason as always, but we do have a super chat donation in our chat, which is something that this pod is the first one to have. Screenboy asks if we have any plans to do a vlog when Arsenal visit. We're going to be doing more than that.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be getting tired of us.
Got some stuff in the pipe, don't we, Michael?
That's what she said. But yeah, we're hoping to do some things, hopefully interactive with the team, definitely interactive with the fans that are all gathered together, and maybe some bonus content from Andy and I when we're living together as man and man. But thank you, Scream Boy, for the donation. Now let's talk about donations, bruv.
Yeah.
Fucking super chats, 200 quid, man, profiting off a loss. No, we're going to do all of it, except we're not actually going to profit at all, Andy, because fortunately for us, we ain't skint.
Nope.
We do all right outside of the podcast, and we don't need money from a hobby of ours that we do for fun to supplement our income. So we try to figure out how to use the pod and use our diabolical views and humor to do some good. So what we do want to do through the podcast is support our charitable endeavor, which is raising money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society through the Gooners versus Cancer fundraising campaign, which is kicking off its third year this summer. Thank you to Michael Hernandez, who has come in with $10 minus 1 penny. So thank you for. I think it forces you to donate 99 cents, but Mike, appreciate it, love you. Thank you. Basically, if you remember from last fall, I talked about Gooners versus Cancer a lot. We ran a fundraising pretty much from mid-August to late September, and we had some amazing help from individuals, supporters clubs like the Virginia Beach Gooners, who raised over $1,000. It was amazing, and some people who contributed some valuable items like Alan Smith, and we ended up raising almost $5,000 in about a month and a half. This year we're getting started early because the tour is coming. We've already rolled out the fundraiser soft already. You can go to Gooners versus Cancer and donate. Thank you, Carrie, for the generous donation as well.
Thank you.
So you can already go there, and I'll explain how that works in a minute. But we're really going to be pushing it out once the tour gets started. So we'll have almost 3 months to do it. We've already gotten some offers from people like Gunner Blog to donate some things of uniqueness that will hopefully help people bid and get some money to charity. And we're hoping to hit 10 grand this year for the cause. If we can do that with your guys' help, that'll be amazing. So as you've seen, and we're not soliciting this, but if you ever do want to pop in a super chat, we'll obviously get to whatever you say with the super chat right away. But every penny of profit that we get from it will go to Gooners versus Cancer. We're not keeping a dime of it.
No, we're not.
No, and keep in mind that while it's convenient to do a super chat and we appreciate it, and it's right at the tip of your fingers, if you are thinking of any larger than a couple dollars or a couple pound type of donation, go to goonersversuscancer.com, especially if you're from the States, because if you donate there, it'll go directly to the LLS in full. If you're worried about tax deductions, you can actually get an email that shows you tax deductibility, and YouTube won't take 40 or 50% of the chat. So again, if you're thinking of making any kind of a sizable donation to really help the cause that's not in a super chat, go to goonersversuscancer.com. Thank you, David.
Ziegler. Well played.
Yeah, 1886. We love it. And all right, so I think that's just about it for the serious stuff. But yeah, it's Andy. Again, I got to thank you for helping to adopt this as kind of our cause. It started with my dad, who passed away about 9 years ago, and something I've been doing through my work about 5 or 6 years, and just the response that we've gotten through people from the pod is amazing. David, I will eat in this summer pineapple on pizza, and I will try to get Andy to do it for a specific size. Can I get you to do that, Andy, for a specific size donation, or you don't care that much about cats?
Wait, hold on a second. So I got to eat a piece of pineapple pizza?
Yeah, we'll find a good price, and then in front of everyone, you have to eat
for a sizable. Hey, Mike, if you find someone who will donate $50, I'll eat pineapple pizza.
50, yeah.
But let's have them donate through. Well, no, I mean, come on. If they want to,
we don't want to give it away.
Well, if you want to go higher, we can go higher. But I don't think people care
give
that
your pineapple
much.
pizza virginity away for $50, guys.
Totally. if
So
people
anyway,
want to pay more to see me dry heave after that,
each dry
content,
heave will be another $18.86.
yeah.
All right, so those are the announcement portions of the podcast. We do have a football club that we talk about here a lot, which is the what are they called? Arsenal.
Yeah.
So the transfer window.
I thought we were Man City supporters now.
I don't know. We're going to give it one more year, and then if they win the league again, we're going over there, right?
Yeah.
Drew, are you Arsenal till you die, or are you just kind of see who's on your fantasy team?
I don't play fantasy.
Good man.
Yeah, so no, I absolutely adore the club. So I'm excited.
I've heard some of your fantasies, but
I don't think you've heard of any of them, actually.
I don't know. I've heard of one of them. All right.
That's really weird.
The transfer window's open. Not a lot of activity yet. We've seen 7 inbound transfers of any note, and we're talking about guys like Zach Steffen, Daniel James, is it Raul Jimenez to Wolves, Fornals. I mean, these are the big transfers into teams, and there's really only been 2 massive transfers out in Eden Hazard and David Ospina. Massive outward transfer for $3.5 million. But so it's hardly just us that are sitting back and waiting. We've got international tournaments this summer coming out the ass. We've got players on vacation. Drew, do we see things heat up on July 1st? And if so, and not until then, is that a mistake given that July 1st brings you almost to where you're getting on planes and selecting your teams for foreign tours?
It's going to depend on what the club have done that we don't know, which is quite a bit, unless you're leaking information. We have no idea what's going on. So you and I and Andy spoke yesterday about how we're hoping that, we're using the remnants of Sven's little black book to target potential players to give us a little boost in certain positions we need. If you look at links with players like, Saliba, that's a Sven signing all day long. So is Alexis Maurice from Lorient. These are players that, we never would have really targeted if not for someone who really knew how to really dig deep into maybe some unknown quantities in terms of transfers to find players. So we can maybe be positive about that maybe the club is taking something that maybe he would have suggested. But moving forward, I think there are going to be bigger questions, obviously. I think personally we're going to wait for Edu to come in. There's heavy rumors that,
is that a 100% sure thing that he is coming in at this point?
I mean, it seems that he is.
I think Raul and didn't they mention that in that little expose they did, the interview? Didn't they kind of confirm it's pretty much happening?
The one I refuse to watch because actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. But it seemed as though they'd kind of talked to it as though it was already kind of over the hurdle. They were just waiting now for him to be done with Brazil.
Yeah, and I mean the upside to that is it opens up a market that we don't really shop in historically. Getting good Brazilian players,
South American guys after
no. Getting younger Brazilian players directly from source isn't the worst thing you could do. There's plenty of bigger clubs than us that do the same thing. Real Madrid do that.
If we could find another Danielson, I mean, we'll be all set.
Or you can get someone like Rodrigo,
Everton.
Keep
Everton from getting Everton.
Totally. No, I think that's the upside. The downside is that there are bigger clubs that get the best talent directly from source in Brazil, and I don't think we can compete with those kind of clubs. And then do we wonder, is Edu's handle on the European market good enough for us to keep competing in that market, or are we going to rely on Raul's contacts in Europe to get us through European market negotiations? We're going to rely on Edu's knowledge base of Brazil and I would assume other parts of South America for him to really head up those deals. I don't really know, obviously.
What is Raul? I mean, like what is he responsible for with this club? Like, I mean, you can't have a position like that with Barcelona and then, go much longer than he's been here already. Too much longer than this, where you're not really sure what his impact is on the club. Maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention as usual.
I mean, for me, it just kind of seems like the only person ahead of him is Josh, and then obviously ahead of Josh is Stan. So I guess he's currently the de facto person in charge of Arsenal Football Club, and he answers to Josh, who.
So he's Gazidis at this point.
So it seemed, yeah, and the issue I have with that is that running Arsenal is not like running Barcelona. The two very different clubs, especially in terms of how they deal with signings, the type of money they're willing to spend or able to spend. So that for me is why I don't really know if Raul was the right man we should have gotten for the role. Obviously, he came through the sport as a businessman through Nike at first, and then he got a position at Barcelona and worked his way up through that. But again, running Barcelona is very much about the financial side of it in terms of continuously making money through how big the club is as it is signing players. But one of the way Barcelona makes so much money is by signing big name players, and they just make the money back through advertisement, shirt sales, that kind of thing.
And then selling them. I mean, like,
and then selling them on. Yeah,
PSG does the same thing. Like now they're apparently thinking of selling Neymar, and that if they do, and I don't know who they sell him to, but they're gonna recover just about everything, if not more, than what they paid for him, which was a ridiculous amount 2 years ago. I mean,
right.
You deal in those markets with those kinds of players. You almost, I mean, unless they have a career-ending injury, you're almost guaranteeing, as long as you're not buying them at 29, 30 years old, that you're going to get your money, like Juventus did. Juventus is not going to get their money back on Ronaldo, but they were going for a Champions League. But I mean, it's almost like you're going to get that money back. So why not just give Mbappe 120 million, which he couldn't go for anymore?
Right, and it's easier to make your money back when you're constantly winning La Liga, or at least finishing second at the absolute worst. When you're constantly competing in Champions League year on year, so not just the Champions League money, but you're always making the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, or even winning it. These also help you bring revenue in, and that's not in a position that Arsenal is in currently. If you've read any of the financial statements that have come out recently, you can tell that every year we're not in Champions League, we're losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's really hard to see how where someone with Raul's acumen that he had at Barcelona translates to Arsenal. It really doesn't. He needed someone who was used to working in an environment where he'd have to find those players for lower value, for lower wages that can still improve your team. And again, that's when you look at the Guendouzi signing. I think he came on a little bit better than people expected. But it's still clear that he had some sort of level of ability. He's still a French, youth international, so he's still good enough, to.
I'm sure Raul wasn't just finding people for La Masia and not for the first team in Barcelona.
I mean, you'd have to ask Tom, to be honest. I don't know. I only know about so much about Barcelona and La Liga, and Tom would know more. But my understanding of it through just reading and research is that. But this is why I think so many fans are frustrated that Sven's gone, because Sven has worked in those environments at Dortmund before Dortmund got the money that they have currently. Yeah. He'd have to find these players. Again, I always point to Julian Weigl because they bought him from 1860 Munich and for 1.5 million euro. 2 years. And then he worked himself through his first preseason, ended up starting their first match of the season. After he was ostracized from 1860 Munich because of some things that went on behind the scenes. And now, 3 years later, for large portions, he was highly touted throughout Europe, became a full German international. Bigger clubs than Dortmund wanted to maybe bring him in. That's the prime example. And that you see those kind of types of signings in the Guendouzi signing, in the Torres signing, who is a player that maybe if he played for a bigger club, if he was a couple years older, could have went for double the money. But we got him before he hit that level of, well, now we can't afford it. I think that's where Arsenal really have to focus on the market, is going after players before they hit that level where we really can't compete to get them.
Yeah, and there's a good question about that from Fredo in the user questions. We want to say hello to Gooner Eagle Eye. Andy, hopefully you'll get a chance to meet Chris when you go over there.
I hope so.
He says, "Fuck pineapple on pizza forever."
Yeah.
So he's an instant brother.
So
Ryan Kloss in the chat. Let me just say hi to Ryan in the chat. We got Henrik Ho Jacobson, Josh Page is in the chat, a couple other people. So sorry to step on you there.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to segue into, and maybe this was the user question you were just discussing, but it just doesn't make sense to me that we are currently, handcuffed with a £40 million budget, and if rumors are true today, we're spending 27 million of that on a teenage child who we're then going to loan back. And we talked briefly about it yesterday, but let's chat again, because the rumors, if true, That's over half of what we're supposedly have in our kitty, and we're not even gonna use it for 9 to 12 months. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It just absolutely does not make sense.
What doesn't make sense is the whole concept of the kitty. I mean, I'm starting to hate kitties as much as I hate Umber and Adam. But this whole thing, I'm saying it's ridiculous. I've stuck my neck out there. So I mean, if we end up having a net spend that's under 40 million, I'm gonna have some crow to eat. I've hedged myself a little bit by saying we have a lot more money. I'm not saying we're going to spend more money. I'm just saying it's not all we have. But I don't buy that. And frankly, whether it's a good idea to loan him back or not, let me jump forward to that. I'm seeing that we've agreed personal terms with him, not the fee with Saint Etienne. I think it's probably largely likely on whether we loan him back or not. But it is. Apparently, by all means, he's good. And I mean, and again, we would have to bring in our French football expert to tell us about that. And we don't have one yet. The ability to do that shows that we are hopefully trying to build a stockpile of players for the future, and not necessarily just £2 million players or £4 million players. But Drew, is there truth to the Saliba thing? Are we thinking seriously of loaning him back for a year because he's too young, or just in order to get the deal done?
I don't know if we're going to loan him back or not. I mean, obviously, he'd walk into Saint Etienne's 11. He's already playing for them regularly, so obviously, it's a guarantee that he'll get first team minutes. We don't know if he'll come in to the team if we don't loan him back and he'll impress Emery enough to get those minutes. If Emery might still be trying to keeping faith in Socrates and someone like Holding when Holding comes back. But if you really look at it in the long term, the deal makes sense. Though again, it's one of those players who 3 years from now could easily be going for double the amount of money we're going to be paying now. And this is something where you have to look at other clubs like RB Leipzig did that with Ibrahima Konate. They got him from Sochaux for a fraction of what he's worth now, and a year and a half later, people are willing to spend 60 million euro on it. So that's the kind of deal we need to be looking at doing. I do think if we're going to spend that kind of money, though, I don't think a loan back would make sense. I think if he's good enough to start at Saint Etienne, he's good enough to at least split time with somebody else at the club and still see minutes in the league, not just in the cups and the Europa League. Both you guys know I'm not very high on Socrates in the first place, so I'd be more than happy with looking forward with the club and trying to get a good pairing with him and Holding down packed, and sooner the better. For me, that makes more logical sense if you're going to build, especially with Freddie Ljungberg coming into his new role as an assistant under Emery. We may be even seeing Freddie as the actual manager long term if Emery is not extended past this season, depending on how results go. So, and Freddie does have a hand in developing a lot of the young players we see currently, coming through and maybe having a sniff at first team minutes this coming season, the likes of Reece Nelson and Emile Smith-Rowe.
It's almost like you've seen my outline for this podcast here.
Well,
with your segue.
All you gotta do is pay attention.
I like David. David says we're going to bolster our defense by bringing in a couple of guys that played defensive mid for a League One team and for a team that got relegated. I do wonder is bringing in a guy like Saliba, who I couldn't claim to know the first thing about, and probably am mispronouncing his name, but is doing that better for us than really trying to make a play to pry away a Lewis Dunk or Nathan Ake? And I just did what I hate. I said a Lewis Dunk, like there's a handful of them, and we would just be prying one of them away.
For me, the theory for me personally is that Saliba ticks some boxes that someone like a Lewis Dunk doesn't. Obviously, Lewis Dunk is he's excellent in the air. He marshals the back line, and that's things that we're currently lacking, obviously. But if we're going to try to keep, to adhere to playing out of the back, to play a more modern, progressive type of footballing approach when we're on the ball, someone like Saliba or a more new age player fits the bill a little bit better. From what I understand, what I've been told by people who write for French football outlets or people who are in that scene, Saliba ticks all those boxes that we need.
Hipsters, in other words. Hipsters, in other words.
I wouldn't call them hipsters. I would call them people who work directly in French football. I'll say that. But So that's my understanding of it. But the downside is the risk. He's still a teenager. He's not even 19 years old yet.
I mean, I vote for getting someone that doesn't let players past him with the ball. Yeah, that's what I think we need to say.
No, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think the club is going to start looking into the younger end of things, because there are plenty of other center backs we could go for who are just like Saliba, but are 4 years older, 5 years older, 22, 23, 24 years old. But the fact that, if it is true, the fact that we're seriously in for someone who is not even 19 yet, I think that's what the club is starting to look forward. And really, that could maybe play into the theory that Emery was only here to right the ship, and the next manager after Emery takes the core of this a young core for the team and moves them forward in progression, and then that's what we're building with. Yeah. That to me would make sense in terms of the steps, but the only question, and Arsene Wenger himself said it, young players do cost you points. And I think that's why sometimes you do see Emery was hesitant to play younger players unless he absolutely had to. And you saw, and something came out in goal, I think it was yesterday, where a lot of the youth players were saying that they were shocked that Tutu didn't get a chance at right back. But and considering we barely played, Jenkins and Lichtsteiner, and we rather would move Maitland-Niles to a right back role when he's really a midfielder, shows you that maybe Emery was hesitant to bring in that young player. So maybe these signings aren't really for Emery as they are for the next manager. Maybe this entire time Emery's job is, as people have postulated before, to really sort of try to change the culture around work ethic and responsibility in the team.
Stop the bleeding.
Right, stop the bleeding, and then moving forward, a more fresh, progressive manager will come in and take that young core and move them forward. And maybe that man is Freddie. We don't know. Maybe it's somebody else. But the fact that Freddie's already been promoted to assistant management role almost kind of speaks like something that was happening with Arteta at Man City under Pep Guardiola. So, and we certainly do have a lot of good young players who, with proper management and progression, can break into the first team over the next maybe 2 or 3 years. I still think it's too early for players like Reece Nelson or Emil Smith-Rowe or Xavier Miyachi and Bukayo Saka. I don't think they're ready yet. I think you can give them limited time in the team. You can have them train with the first team.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're ready to actually get some minutes that some people are actually claiming that Reece Nelson will walk into our 11. I think that's absolutely insane. I think that's the standard Arsenal fan thing, is that we over-exaggerate the effectiveness and maybe level that our young players are at, but that doesn't mean there's enough promise. It means that he has to be managed. So I think if we manage the young players this season, moving into the season after that, then increase their minutes within 2 or 3 years, those players should be breaking into the first team regularly. And if they're not good enough, then we have to move them on. And I think that's what you see when you look at other clubs around Europe who are known for youth progression and youth production. If you're not really ready to handle first team minutes when you're 19 or 20 years old, they move you on and they sell you to a club lower, where you can walk into a club with maybe a little smaller expectations. And that's kind of how we have to shape things. And Freddie's had some experience at Wolfsburg, obviously, and they're pretty solid with youth production. So I guess he would have taken that knowledge and applied it here with the under 23s, and we'll see how it goes.
So Andy, speaking of being ready for first team minutes, 2 Arsenal loanees have stated this summer that they are not up for being loaned again. Not that they really get to choose that, but they've said it, and they both might have a realistic shot, like Drew was saying, of being depth players on our bench, especially if we move on. Guys like Elneny, Mkhitaryan, Welbeck, who's already gone, but both Reece Nelson and Bielik looking to make an impression this summer and be first teamers. Do you think that they're ready to contribute?
I can't say that I've seen both of them play every week. Bellick, it seems as though everyone who has seen him, who knows footballs, rates him really highly. And, to say that they're ready or not, I don't think I wouldn't say that's the argument. I like the fact that they want to play for their place in the squad. There's nothing wrong with them being included in the squad, because they're both homegrown players and we're going to be kind of tied by that. And give them the opportunity to fight. I think it's the only way that we can improve as a team, is we give these kids the opportunity to try and push. Are they going to compete against Man City and Liverpool, or help us compete against them? Probably not. But how do we know unless we give them a shot?
How many times did we start Granit Xhaka and Elneny. I mean, not a ton, but how many times in the last season and a half have we started a midfielder in the back line?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the frustrating part about it. Like Xhaka, Elneny, even Monreal, they've all had to jump back there and be players who are not necessarily – they're handicapped because it's not their position. And we could have easily slotted in a Billick or a Chambers, and they would have been hit the ground running. So I don't have a problem with them saying that they don't want to be loaned out again. They want to fight for a first-team spot. It's only fair, right? This is their profession. They're getting up there in age. But, Mike, I almost feel like if you were to put Chambers and Billick on the market today, even Reece Nelson, you're probably looking at $20 million plus at any other team that would sell them, except for Arsenal, will sell them for $4 million happily to a team. But I say put them in the squad.
They're like us. They're like, we don't really need money, so
exactly. Yeah.
We're not going to try to get the most that we can out of it.
We're just going to donate it all to the LA Rams Stadium.
Exactly. I'm a little worried about Bielik because last year he spent the entire year as an addict. And the last thing we need is a recovering addict on our team.
Dad jokes.
Yeah, fucking up the dressing
room. Here's the thing, like, as Drew pointed out, Arsenal as a fan base will look at like a Reece Nelson, and I hate to go to certain platforms, but there are people that have the persuasion of a lot of individuals, and Reece Nelson will have a stretch of 5 games where he'll do really well, maybe an assist, maybe a goal, maybe both, and then everyone thinks he's the next coming of Messi or Ronaldo. Let's push the brakes a little bit because players of that age will ebb and flow, and we need to allow him to do so. I mean, look at Maitland-Niles. Dude came under such scrutiny for having 1 or 2 poor games in a row. And it's like they're still teenagers. They're still kids. So if they are going to join our squad, we just need to pump the brakes a little bit. Now, if we go out and we sell and we buy Carrasco for 35, 40 million, the expectation is that he's going to do business for us, and that he should be performing every week. I'm not so sure about these kids. So I would put them into the squad, allow them opportunities to play in games, substitute them in, let them play League Cup, some of the Europa League ties, and then really have them push towards the end of the season. But we're not going to get better if we just bring in Reece Nelson and that's it. That's not going to be good enough for Arsenal.
Yeah, and David Ziegler, today he qualifies as David Ziegler with his questions. He has a couple of pro-cons about Bielik. Says pro-Bielik, young talent already on the books. Anti-Bielik, if we bought a League One defensive mid to solve our center-back problems, we'd lose our collective minds. That's a good point. Pro-Bielik, the alternative is Mustafi for another season. So verdict on that one is Bielik. So speaking of user questions, and speaking of David Ziegler, we may rename this segment the Pineapple Roads Mailbag, brought to you by the Waffle House in San Antonio. He submitted 17 questions today, possibly closer to 20.
Dude needs a hobby.
If this is his hobby, I'm more power to him. I friggin' love the questions. But we don't have time to read all of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the Pineapple Roads, aka David Ziegler mailbag. I hope I haven't just outed him, but and I'm starting to think even with other people, our style is catching on because some of these user questions are showing that people get the show here. So the training has done its work. So when we get to David's questions, I am going to read 3 of them at a time, and you can choose one that you want to answer. From Fred first, at RLF86 on Twitter. We've got a lot of stylish and social media savvy players. So the obvious question is, which Arsenal player do you think has the most stylish pubic hair? Andy, we're going to start with you.
I mean, the obvious answer here is it's got to be Bellerin, right?
Oh, God, you stole my answer.
I mean, it's got to be Bellerin.
All right. Yeah, but does he have a pubic man bun, a landing strip, or braids? Which do you think he's going with down there?
I'm going to guess Bellerin's got the landing strip from belly button to top of penis.
Does he shave? If I show how he shaves, am I going to end up doing the gold?
But then I also I think that Bellerin will sometimes get creative, Mike, and sometimes it'll be like a lightning bolt, landing strip.
Oh, you think he has the barber shop?
Oh yeah, totally.
And give him a special look just in case of a situation on the pitch with the pants.
Yeah, Yeah.
Or is he going to get crotchless pants so that you can see what he has going
I
on?
could also see that, you know how they've got like where women like bedazzle their vaginas? Maybe he's bedazzled his.
I think it's called vajazzling.
Where did Drew go? Why is he
Why has he left the country? We have Becca saying waxed, screenplay a Brazilian, landing strip with glitter, says Joshua Page. Archie says, what the fuck have I just tuned into? Drew, do you have any other suggestions of who it might be? Or is it going to end up being like Rob Holding or something?
No, it's going to be Guendouzi because he's going to have that full Samson hairdo.
That was my other choice.
Yeah, that's going to be my vote. So.
All right, well, it's 2-1. Unfortunately, Nate's not here to weigh in. All right, from Dragomir Vardarov, a more serious question. Does the imminent promotion, and this is what we talked about, does the imminent promotion of Lundberg and the links to the young French lads point to the club laying the foundations for the next manager, Freddie, rather than believing in Emery? We've pretty much covered. I mean, Andy, what do you think? Do you think Freddie's here to kind of serve as a backstop to a failure this year?
Yeah, I can't say. I doubt that our board have hired Emery as the guy, and they've outlined like, hey, we're going to give him 3 years and we move on to the next one, because you can never put a time frame on it. I think the promotion of Lynchburg going into that role is for him to be that bridge between youth and senior, which highlights to me that we are in a financial kind of holding pattern, and that but we also have invested a lot in these youngsters, so why not give them that opportunity? And who better to do that than him? He's been
a lot of the guys that we're talking about coming in and fighting for first place squads played for him in the youth setup today.
Yeah, both 18s and 23s. So I think he's a great bridge. I don't know if there's been hey, we're going to promote him because he might be the next manager. I don't think it works that way. You know, you wouldn't do that in business. You wouldn't hire someone to say, hey, they're going to be the next CEO. You would give them the opportunity to prove themselves like anyone would. So it's a great promotion, I think, for us. And I think he'll work well in connection if Adu does come in, because let's not forget they were teammates for a very long time, and they probably have that relationship and are able to communicate well with each other. So there's a lot of great things with that Freddie appointment.
Yeah, I like it. Is he pretty much, Drew, is he pushing Steve Gould the other way? Is he going down to the youth setup, or is he just going to quietly be phased
No, he's
out?
going to the youth setup, and Gould has actually had a lot of success with the under 18s, under 23s before. He's won multiple trophies with them. He's brought through some good young players. Jack Wilshere came through under him, actually, to be specific. So he's had success there. If it's a role that he can reestablish himself in, I think it'll suit him.
I'd say he needs a change of scenery.
Yeah, I think he does. I do think he knows and loves the club enough to where he should be kept. I know he gets a lot of stick for doing or not doing enough, supposedly, under both Arsene Wenger and Unai Emery. So this will serve as a good test. If he goes down there and all of a sudden the under 23s tank, then you kind of know maybe that there may have been some sort of background to those claims. Just moving back to the whole thing about Freddie and Unai specifically, I know this is a bit off topic, but I do think that people aren't paying enough attention to Emery's track record before he came to us to really see as to why the theory is there that he's not the long-term appointment for this club moving forward. Because if you really look at it, when he got a big job to step into, things fell apart with him at PSG in terms of his relationship with the players, in terms of tactical questions that we have the same technical questions that he was being asked of him at PSG. The style completely went out at the door there, but he was more successful at clubs that had smaller expectations, that really didn't have a chance to push and really try to go at the elite for Champions League spots and maybe be an outside shot at winning the league and moving forward. That's where Arsenal needs to be, but he's never had a position where he was successful at, where there was a club that had ambitions past maybe just doing well in Europa League and finishing no higher than fourth. But if people want this club to progress, then Emery's track record leans towards the fact that he won't be the one to do it, which is why I genuinely think that moving forward, I think that's why the club gave him 2 years with the option for the third. If they were so sure that he was going to be the man to keep going, then they would have given him the 3rd year. I think this year, obviously there was going to be that betting period, and we can be critical about his first season, but there was obviously going to be a lot of things to fix under him. But I think this is the year that he has to prove everything. And if he doesn't, they're not going to give him that 3rd year.
Yeah, I mean, the first year was the stop the bleeding year. The second is you gotta turn it around the other direction.
He has to win the Europa League, or we have to get top 4 this coming season. If he doesn't do either of those, I think he's out the door. I don't think they pick up the option for the 3rd. And then we'll have a better idea if Freddie was promoted, because they're just going to give the job to Freddie because of those young players we have coming through, because he does know them so well. Or if it's going to be Freddie's going to be the assistant. And like Andy said, that bridge between youth development and tracking them into the first team successfully, and bringing in a manager who has a dedicated track record of success with teams that have younger players, with teams that do rely as much on the youth system as they do on the transfer market. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. Or can I throw this in? What if, right? We had a conversation with Allegri last year.
Oh, Christ.
Hold on. Allegri was then told, Ronaldo's heading your direction. So he turned around and said, well, pump the brakes for a second, because now I've got Ronaldo. He said, I'll give it a year there. I'll take a year off. Shared that with those who were in the higher echelons of Arsenal, and it's all coming full circle.
Like Andy.
No, I personally...
Why would he leave with Ramsey incoming, though? I mean, you don't leave a team when Aaron Ramsey comes to you.
I don't think we have a chance in hell at Allegri. I think that obviously he's going to want to go to the pinnacle of whatever league he ends up in.
He'll go to Real.
I think he might go to Real. You know, he could easily end up at someone like Man United, because we don't know how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to do. He could easily get sacked come November, and then if Allegri is still unemployed, then he can just slot right in, and they'll go for him. United will throw however much money at him that they want, because that's what to do. So
if Emery gets us 4th place next season, semifinals or quarterfinals of the Europa League, whatever, it doesn't matter, because we got 4th place.
Right.
And Allegri basically said, I'm interested in the challenge. Would you, regardless of the performance, this is a question from Mike Hernandez, would you basically say, sorry, Emery, we've got an opportunity to get a guy that we really, really, really want?
Is this a question for me or Andy, or both?
For you. Quickly, though.
I would go for Allegri simply because he has a more established track record of success with bigger teams. Again, Emery's track record is established at Sevilla. He did very well at Sevilla. He did very well at Valencia. But when he went to when he made the jump, he really wasn't successful. Despite him winning 7 trophies in 2 years at PSG, he's still mocked in France. Despite that, there's a reason for that, and he's not really well thought of there.
Yeah,
I think for me that's telling. I think Allegri was brilliant at Milan. He did very, very well at Juventus. I don't think it's the type of manager on a tactical level that we need, but I do think his pedigree would help bring the club forward. Sure.
Okay, and yeah, Emery, to me, the Europa League it's a one-off tournament. Obviously it meant everything to us as it turned out this year. But I think we make top 4, or he's gone. And frankly, I think the way we make top 4, if it's a year like the Leicester year where everybody fell off and it was like a contest to see who didn't want to get in the top 4, then I still think they could, depending on who would come in, they can do better. And this is from a guy who backs Emery as much as anybody, to stay and finish the job. But
let me ask you this question though, right? We keep talking about Emery not being good enough for a top club. Are we really a top club anymore? Like, genuine question. Because when you look at the last 10, 12 years, we haven't done anything of substance. We haven't really challenged for the league. The one opportunity we had to win the league, we didn't. We faltered at like a lot of steps because Leicester stole it. We don't have the buying power. If you look at the top 6 clubs in Europe, they're all buying players for 50 million. Look at Manchester United. They're in the same spot we are. probably a tad worse because they finish below us, so they don't get as much money as us, and they're outbidding $50 million per player because their global brand is much larger than ours. So I just asked that question, like, we can't attract an Allegri type of manager with a 40 million pound budget and these bullshit players. I don't think Allegri is going to want to come into a club and rebuild it from the bottom up.
So now you do think we have a $40 million budget?
Well, but that's what everyone, like, that's what you assume if you, like, unless you're Allegri and you have that opportunity to speak with Josh and Stan, outside of that, you don't know. So
we don't operate like United City.
Exactly. So why would you want to come to us? Right. We are a massive project. So the question is are we better off bringing, like as Drew said before, we bring in Unai to be kind of that 2 to 3 year for the next manager who's like, okay, this is when it starts. That's my frustration with Arsenal, is if they just came out and just put it all to bed and just said, hey, this is where we are as a club. We're never going to be in that $150 million or £150 million budget for a transfer window. It's never going to happen. We have to build from within. We have to build youth. I think it cools the expectations. I don't see us being that club we were 10, 15 years ago. We are now going to be a club that I think is more aligned with the Everton, Wolves, Chelsea, Mike. I think Chelsea are on the way down too. I mean,
you're doing what you always do at home with your family now. You're just like telling everyone to stop expecting so much.
Riding the wave of low expectation.
Exactly.
I told you, my dad told me that at 12, and it stuck with me through life.
All right. So next question, and thank you for that one, Dragomir. From J-Ball at John Gunners. If you could choose one team, this is just a one-word answer. You could choose one team to relegate next year. Who would it be?
Tottenham.
You would want that? Okay, now we're going to do more than one word. Would you really not? You just want them to be relegated to the point where we never play them again?
The fan base?
I mean, it'd be great, but Celtic lost a little bit of their being when Rangers spent 4 or 5 years out of the top flight, and I would imagine, I don't know how every Celtic fan felt, but I mean, their seasons were
it's only 2 matches though, Mike. We have great rivalry with United still. We have great rivalry with West Ham, with Chelsea. There's enough to go around. Just to see them get relegated would just be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's true. Drew, what are you going?
I think Andy's already said it all. There's no club more I want to see relegated than Spurs. It's not even close. Right. You have to just go into the new stadium and to have to play championship football in that.
That's true.
Not fill it out. Have their finances.
That's what I thought was going to happen to West Ham that year that they moved to that stadium, and they were really struggling for a while. But.
Yeah, it has to be Spurs. I mean, the joy I would get out of seeing that. Especially because one of my closer friends, she's a huge Spurs supporter. Her dad was one of the kitmen at Spurs. I would just, every time I see her, I would just smile, and that would be it. And then her reaction would say everything. So yeah, no, it'd have to be Spurs.
That would be great. I tried to not say Spurs because I was just thinking of the whole Celtic thing, but I thought Spurs would be the obvious answer. And then I realized you didn't say anything about Premier League teams, so I'm going to go with Stoke again. Have them go down to League One because those fucking guys suck. Now, Gooner Jack in the chat. Thank you for your comment. But we would never get into that kind of mudslinging and negativity about anybody else. So, while we appreciate and love and agree with what you said, we just can't be saying those things about our fellow supporters who are.
Let's just make it clear, right? We were friends with that dude up until 2 weeks ago when he took the joke the absolute wrong way. And so, to each his own. But, I still like the guy. I don't. He got caught in the moment.
I used to.
I know you don't. But, in all intents and purposes, it was a joke that went the wrong way that didn't even involve Mike for a long, long period of it. But anyway, let's keep moving on, Mikey.
Yeah. All right. From Andrew, the Hinkley Gooner in the chat. Here it comes. Get ready. You asked if we got the question yet. It's a good one. Set your DVRs now so you can keep us forever. Okay. Drew. Yeah. If you were gay I was just waiting for the little icon at the bottom of the screen to disappear. If you were gay, which of the current squad, and you can give two answers for this, or you could give the same one. Which of the current squad would you think is A, the most good looking, and B, the best lover?
I like how you're asking me this question first as well.
I mean, I have an answer right away. If you want to think about it.
I mean, here's my answers.
First of all, as a straight dude, there's nothing wrong with saying a guy is an attractive guy.
No, there's nothing.
So
Andy does it all the time, except he's not a straight dude.
Of the current squad, I would say I'd say Lacazette's probably the more attractive dude on the squad. In terms of the best lover.
Why did you choose?
Because we're both black dudes, we have facial hair.
You're basically the Lacazette of New York.
You got to go with that. I'm not French, so I'd be more of the Hendrik Larsson of New York.
It's like you combined with Sebi would be the Lacazette of New York.
No. I would go with Hendrik Larsson of New York. We'll go with that. As the best lover, Jesus, I guess because
this is Andrew the Hinckley Gooners' fault. You got to go to Hinckley and take care of this.
I guess because he's pulling U.S. collegiate talent, I'd probably say Rob Holding because
she is beautiful.
He's coming over to the States and taking our own away from us. So
well, apparently not only is he doing that, but he's physically coming to this. Like I just saw on Arsenal America. I'm not kidding. The South Bay Gooners, who are from San Jose. He's apparently coming to a pub this weekend, and they reached out to the local supporters club and completely violated his privacy with his permission, I guess. And they were like, yeah, he's going to be there tomorrow doing something, and he's happy to take pictures. So if you are in the San Francisco area, Mike Hernandez, and you want to meet Rob Holding, get in touch with me afterwards, and I'll point out the.
Yeah, Mike, send that to me because I got a friend who's in San Jose. He might want to run over there for that.
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool. Just don't kick him in the knee, okay? I'm going to go best looking, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the lovely and beautiful Becca. It is Leno. I'm going to go with Burned. And he's definitely the best looking, but he would not be the best lover. 150% chance it's the man who Drew thinks would have the best pubic hair on the team, Guendouzi. First of all,
Guendouzi's so young, he'd just be very premature in his lovemaking.
He'd try to vlog it on Snapchat and scream when it's happening.
I don't know. I mean, he seems young but experienced. So, I mean, is he 19 or 20? Is he 20 yet?
I don't think so. I don't think he's still 19. I have to.
All right, well, I mean, 19-year-olds can, they could just go all night. We've seen how tender he is. He loves hugging his teammates after goals. He's always just putting his hands on people, and so you know that he would be a tender lover. And he loves, he's French, if you know what I'm saying. And I really hope that you do, because I have no fucking idea what I'm saying right now. Andy, watch this podcast be the one that the Rapids media team looks at when they're trying to decide whether to give us credentials or not. Did we get Andy? Did we get your answers to this?
No, you didn't. So obviously, the most attractive has to be Granite.
Yeah, we knew that was coming.
Face of an angel. Best love maker. I feel like Lacazette's got to take that, and he's a pretty attractive guy too. I've always said though, Mike, if I came home and the wife was having relations with Thierry Henry, I'd make him a sandwich for when it was finished. I don't know. I would do the same for Lacazette.
You said the same thing about Justin.
Did I?
Not just Thierry. I'm sure at some point you did.
He's like, "Oh, he was showering in my house."
At least he isn't doing what I'm going to be doing to your plumbing in a month. We got some interesting answers to this. So he's the best looking. Oh, and you said Lacazette for the pipe.
Yeah.
Right. We have Glenn saying the Arsenal mascot looks like my wife. Andrew the Hingley Gooner, who asked the question, says, "Have you seen Mavropanos' legs?" Becca saying Bernie as expected. There was another funny answer I saw in there. If not Xhaka, Holding, says Fredo. And then there was one other answer I saw, and I can't find it now, but it was funny. Oh, David Ziegler saying German is not a romantic sounding language.
No, it's not.
But Leno, I agree with that, which is why I chose Leno just to look at, not to have relations with. So, all right. So that is some important stuff that we had to get through. From Fredo, we've been linked with primarily young players this summer, most in the 18 to 23 bracket. While I think that's a good thing, would such a strategy leave us vulnerable next season to a further slide as young players learn the ropes of English football? Again, buying young players, especially from outside of the Premier League. I don't know that we're buying any 18 to 23-year-olds to play regular minutes, although we didn't think that was what Guendouzi was going to be doing in addition to Sex last year. But Andy, are you worried just that we're not looking for enough? I mean, we get complaints because we're looking at a guy in Perisic who's 29, 30 years old. We're complaining, we tend to complain about buying people who are too young as well. And that wasn't what Fredo was doing, but
no, I think there needs to be a nice balance. Here's the deal, Mike. If we brought 3 players of Guendouzi's quality to Arsenal next season, we become a better team. I mean, I think there's still a lot of growth that's needed in that young man, but if you add 3, replacing some players who have gone or left the club, then yeah, we become a better team. But it's not just that. There are the rigors of the Premier League that you need to get used to, and that's what makes me nervous. Torreira by the end of the season was just absolutely on E. So there needs to be a nice balance. And so if we are going to go out and sign 1 or 2 youngsters, then we need to sign, I think, 2 or 3 players who have that high level ability. So like a Carrasco who plays regularly with Belgium. Everyone keeps saying, well, why did he move to China? Because he got paid a shit ton of money. That's why he moved to China. And we've seen players come back and just be absolutely fine. I mean, a quality player is a quality player unless they're injured. So there just needs to be a good balance.
Yeah. And Andrew says we need to buy Ziyech. That is the classic example of the most obvious transfer that's just not going to happen for no good reason. We talked about this last night when we were chatting. If this ends up coming down to 5 million, 7 million pounds of transfer fee, and the guy wants to come here, he clearly play here and probably not for 200 grand a week. That just seems like an obvious nailed on transfer to me. But anyway, not to get too sidetracked. Now we get to the Pineapple Roads raft of questions.
I've just realized that I can put David Ziegler in a timeout. What does that mean?
It means he won't be able to say anything in the chat for a period of time. I was putting a timeout in the same old Arsenal, and then I think Lee put me into a permanent timeout in his chat because he wasn't a fan of the things that I was contributing to his podcast. So let's go to. It would be a shame to put him in timeout when we're about to listen to all of his questions. So, but reading his questions, I got some great recommendations for Netflix shows a couple of weeks ago, and I've watched a few of them. I watched Manhunt, The Unabomber. I just started Mindhunter, and I've seen a couple of episodes. And these are like episodes about FBI profilers and people who try to get into the dark minds of deranged individuals. And I'm reading all these user questions, and I feel like the characters in these shows. So, because I'm getting a very dark and disturbed window into the world of David Pineapple Rhodes Ziegler. But so we're going to read 3 at once, and you get to pick one that you want to answer. We're going to start with you, Drew, because I haven't heard your sultry tones in a little while. Group number 1 is demustafication a word, and if not, why the hell isn't it? That's 1. What would cause a ceiling fan to keep burning up and needing to be replaced? That's 2. And are Dockers meant to be worn on the hips or up on the natural waist? So you get to choose one of those 3, and get your feedback on that.
Demustafication is clearly not a word, but I like the sound of the word. I don't like the sound of what the word implies, however.
Yes, we did when we brought you into our world, which again we appreciate. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
we did kind of upset the equilibrium about the Mustafi hate. Ours is generally pretty fake, but you are a true lover, aren't you?
It's not a true lover, but I just I see the pros and cons, and I think people.
You're level-headed, is what we're saying.
I'm level-headed, and I think people criticize Mustafi based off of how much we spent on him, not the player he actually is. If you look at him for face value of the level of the player, you're getting what you're seeing. He can be very, very good on the day, or he can also make bonehead plays on the day that will cost you.
Yeah, criticizing someone on their purchase price is dumb, but criticizing them on allowing 19 out of the last 14 goals at any point in time is probably valid.
But there have been some. Michael from Your Arsenal, one of them, wrote an article that was saying statistically Mustafi and Holding was our best center back pairing until Holding got injured. So that's the thing. There's evidence to suggest both ways that he has something to give, and that you could also we would be fine if we sold him. I'd rather keep him as a third or fourth choice center back, where you give him the cups, you give him certain Europa League matches, and you rotate him in when you need a rest. But I don't think he should be starting for Arsenal, though. I think that's.
I think everybody can get behind that statement. I believe.
Yeah.
Question group number 2. Why do people say whole nother? Is it mispronouncing whole other or whole another? I doubt that one will be selected. What do you think the sequence of events was that led to the invention of cheese? And this is the one that I'm going to choose for this one. Why are there only 2 words, blind and deaf, for when one of our 5 senses don't work? What about the other 3? Why don't they get words? I'm going to choose this one. And frankly, there are words for these. They're just not as commonly known. When you have no touch, when you're being out of touch, it's called cronkying. Lack of smell might be one. I don't know if there is a word for that, but the opposite, someone who smells all the time, is called LG. And then when you're unable to taste, it's called you like pineapple on pizza because fuck it, I can't taste it anyway. So there are words, pineapple, if you just aren't familiar with them yet. Group 3, Andy, this goes to you.
Okay.
Why aren't hat sizes and shoe sizes based on the same scale? And you see what I'm talking about the profiling situation.
Yeah.
There's definitely some animals around his house that wish they hadn't gone anywhere near his house. But would you let Mustafi marry your mom, be forced to call him dad, if saying no to that situation meant that he got a 5-year contract extension and the armband at Arsenal? And the third question is, who's your favorite televangelist?
I'm trying to figure if who's that televangelist that just got like absolutely annihilated for the private plane thing.
Every one of them.
Yeah. I'll go with the Mustafi marrying my mom. That's fine. I'll call him dad as long as I don't have to call him daddy. I suppose that's a plus. He seems like he'd be a good night out.
Yeah, I mean we've seen that he can dance.
Yeah.
He can boogie. He can boogie down the dance floor. So all right. So you're letting him marry your mom, who has her own level of a house. I mean, she could definitely accommodate him. And I mean, from a hospitality standpoint, I don't mean that in any other way.
It's weird that she just told me she's going on vacation from the dates of July 12th through the 16th, and I can't quite pinpoint.
Wait, those are the dates I'm going to be in Denver.
Oh, that's why.
Oh, okay. All right. Next question. And then we're just going to go to some rapid fire individual ones that were too good to possibly not be chosen. Drew, what's the appropriate punishment for whoever keeps deciding to play Sweet Caroline in the stadium after matches? Number 2, do you have any recommendations for vacation spots after the summer tour? Maybe some places off the beaten path.
I think that question is directed towards me, Mike.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll let you answer it. And then the third one is, at what point in the history of this podcast have you thought, why did we start taking these questions? Never. I said this on Twitter. We've never said that. This is exactly what we had in mind.
So the question, vacation destinations, does it have to be in the United States or can it be anywhere?
Well, Andy, if that one's for you, why don't you take the Sweet Caroline question, Drew? I'm giving you the choice between 3 and then telling you which one.
The reason the question is for me is because Mr. Ziegler has been sending me pamphlets since March of places that I should visit in the United States. And
how many pamphlets in 3 months?
Oh God, easily 50. And The only place out of all these pamphlets I would go would have been Hawaii. The rest of the places I've had to actually Google to see if they're real.
Oh, and that's also the televangelist. Or is that the televangelist question as well?
Well,
or?
I don't think the letters he's had sent to me are from a televangelist.
It's from a real evangelist, from just a regular evangelist.
David's got way too much free time.
Oh, it's great. All right, so Drew, you can answer the vacation spots, or I mean, I guess you can't answer the podcast one, but so go with Sweet Caroline. What do we need to do with that person?
Public castration. I'll go with that.
There you go.
I absolutely fucking hate that song.
Yeah, it's not cool.
No.
It's not funny anymore, people.
Correct.
All right, some rapid fire questions then. One serious one. Would we all be feeling differently? We've talked about this. If last season was flipped and we started out stumbling but ended with 20 plus games unbeaten. I have two thoughts on this. Number one, if we started the season, first 6 or 7 games, with how we ended the last 6 or 7, where we won one of them and none of them were against top competition, would he have made it to the 8th week of the season? But secondly, yeah, I mean, obviously, we've said if we had just gone like absolutely haywire or bonkers at the end of the season and barely missed out on 4th, we'd be really looking forward to building on that and going into the next season. Whereas right now it feels really empty because we had an opportunity to do something. Everyone else tried to make it easier for us and we still fucked it up. But, Andy, I mean, does it make a difference to you, or is it just the positioning and the Europa League final?
I think obviously it's really, for me, it would have mattered how the 22 games to end the season was going. I think there would be way more excitement going into this summer and into next season if those 22 games were games that we put away handedly. Maybe you get a little lucky in there, but like you're playing some good football, and on top of that, then you probably do win the trophies and what have you. But I don't know, Mike. It's a weird one for me. I'm still give him a season or two to figure this out. Let him build the team. I still don't want to, like, it's hard to answer this without judging the manager. You know what I mean? So.
Right.
But to answer the question the best I could is I would say that the 22 match run, if it was at the end of the season, it's just how are we playing, because I think even when we were in that 22 match run, it was a lot of fun, but we were still seeing a lot of cracks. And I think a true football supporter during the time, whilst it was enjoyable, still look back at it and go, hey, we weren't playing great football. Like there was nothing exciting. Now, I'm totally fine with playing a 38-game season that's absolute dog shit and boring to watch if we're lifting a trophy at the end. I don't care if it's pretty football or not. If there's a system in place and it's working, great. But we never saw the system. We never figured it out. And I think we started off the season playing really well with high press. There was a lot of energy. And then I really think that Bellerin holding injury made him have to change the system, really made him have to tweak it. And then we just never got to go all systems firing. And then God knows what happened with Ozil, but I truly think he was hurt during that time. And so then that happened. We just got really unlucky with injuries. We just don't have the depth. Like City could have 2 or 3 of their main squad drop out and Pep can go, okay, no problem. I can mix and match and don't really have to make that many changes. Like it seemed like Unai just lost the plot, and whether that's his fault or not, I don't know, but just how the 22 match run would have ended the season and how we would have played. And I don't think it would have been any better. So I don't think it matters.
Yeah. All right. Drew, would it be weird to put Carson Wentz's name on my next Arsenal kit?
Yes.
and that one was also I think that was an Eagles joke aimed at you, Andy.
Yeah, fuck the Eagles.
But that does bring up an interesting point, which is
who wrote that? Do you think?
Who wrote that? Pineapple wrote that.
Wow, that motherfucker.
Better question though is what would be the single worst thing you could put on your Arsenal top, like something that would get your ass kicked in the middle of the 12 pins? Is there anything like more enraging for you to put on there than Silent Stan or Kroenke with the number 1 underneath it, or I Love the Rams or something? I mean, like what would be the worst possible fake name that you could put on, or real name?
This is for me?
Sure.
And Percy.
Hmm.
Cole.
Yeah, but you still see every once in a while. You still like I've seen a guy show up at the pub with a Van Persie jersey on,
Hey,
which is like, I mean,
hey,
well,
Drew, what are your thoughts on a current kit with a legend's name and number on the back?
No, I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I just
well,
feel like
that's a whole discussion that
I'm
some
just
people
curious.
are like, why are you telling me what I can do and what I can't do?
no, but that's like me, going out getting a Yankees jersey and throwing Joe DiMaggio's name on it. Like to me, that's just for me personally. I don't see the point. If somehow through the grace of God, I had a relative that had an actual Joe DiMaggio jersey before they actually had Joe DiMaggio jerseys in the first place, hand it down and wear it. It's one thing, but you don't really see LA Kings fans when they're around putting Gretzky on the name of the back, do you? Like, I don't know. I feel like if it's a retro jersey that you find and then you put a player's name from that period that the jersey's on, sure. But if I get the Arsenal kit this season, I'm not going to put Thierry Henry's name on the back of it. So
we got some people saying Kane would to put on the back of an Arsenal jersey. Kane, Gazidis, Mustafi. You just get your ass kicked if you walk into Mustafi. Actually, at Gooner, I want to say this. I ran into somebody who I now am friends with and find him fascinating. His reasoning was fascinating. He was wearing an old Nasri jersey. And I was like, that's an interesting choice. And he's like, yeah, I can't even remember what his explanation was, but it was something about like he wasn't trying to glorify Nasri. He was trying to talk about how far we had come or something like that. But I actually like this guy, but I certainly wouldn't have made that choice as far as my dress is concerned. But all right, we're almost done here. What is your favorite made-up Urban Dictionary entry? This one is for you, Andy, lover of the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, it's got to be Dingus.
Hold on, we got a list of made-up Urban Dictionary entries. You got to say which one your favorite is.
I thought it was just going to be one of my favorites.
No. And by the way, I don't remember what pod that was. It was like late in season 1, I think.
But I'm not going to
never heard a man laugh as hard as. All right, so here are the options. Minnesota Mustang.
The actual definition to them.
Dave.
About the definition, I don't know what they mean. Maybe save this for next time, and we'll actually have the definition for them.
They're not real.
They're on Urban Dictionary, Mike.
They're not on Urban Dictionary.
Hundreds of dollars going to it.
They're not even real enough to be on Urban Dictionary.
Why are you asking me this?
Because I like to read the questions that we are asked. Minnesota mustache, angry pope on a trampoline, flaming burrito dispenser. I think we could pretty much figure out what that would be. The old Michael Strahan, dining car surprise, and Seattle Pud Pounder. See, I need people to understand the level of weirdness we're dealing with here, and the danger that Pineapple Roads poses to society. I guess you don't have a favorite one of those.
No, I went to Urban Dictionary.
Oh yeah, here we go. Here comes the part where you see a guy laugh harder than you've ever seen.
No, I'm not going to.
Marcel DeWick, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is in the chat first. I said you do an amazing job.
I'm not reading these because Beck is in the chat.
She'd be the first one to tell you to read them. Well, Marcel, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Now, see, this isn't fair to people who are listening on iTunes because you're not getting to see what's in the chat.
For the sake of the Rapids, let's not read that off.
Yes. All right. Well, if you want to see this one, you got to go to YouTube. You got to follow us on YouTube. You got to do all that other shit. All right. And the last question of the podcast. This is for Drew. When you need, well, we can all answer, but Drew first. When you need to excuse yourself to have some special private alone time, do you just tell the family that you're going to do some podcast stuff?
No, I don't have to explain what I do to people. So no, I just
I don't know. I asked you the other day what you were doing, but that's true. So you don't have to explain to anybody. Why? I mean, why lie? I mean, do animals in the jungle have to lie to their families when they need to go have a wank?
No,
I
they
mean,
literally sit right there and do it. So
I've never seen Gunnersaurus. I mean, he just does it on the middle of the pitch. I've never seen like the animal kingdom do it. So, Andy, do you need me to reread the question because you're probably looking at the Urban Dictionary? This is why you wanted to share our screens while you were.
When you need excuse, let's see. I read it again.
When you need to excuse yourself to have some special private alone time, do you just tell the family that you're going to do some podcast stuff?
No, I just tell them I'm going to go poop.
So does that mean you take care of business in the bathroom?
Oh, I thought you were talking about pooping.
No. It's a special private alone time. That's what you like to do with your alone time?
As a child of Jesus Christ, I can't believe you're asking me this question.
Yeah, me too, right? All right. So that's season 4. We'll be back next August for season 5.
Drew's like, so guys, remember when I told you that I would join your team? And
well, someone in the chat was like, how is Drew going to make it through a whole season?
Multiple people have already posed that question.
Yeah, we just want to make it clear. I mean, you're welcome to, but Drew isn't going to be on this podcast with us all the time. He's going to be doing a separate show that appears on our channel, which is going to be as professional as this show is unprofessional. So we will certainly enjoy and love having Drew on as much as possible, but he's not going to actually have to sit through this horrible process.
Hey, Marcel's coming with a good question, so I want to ask it quick. Do you think any other manager would actually be able to do a better job with the squad we had last season?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes as well. Drew, why are you saying yes?
Because I just feel like it drives me nuts when people come up with this excuse that a manager needs his players before he can do his work. If you need optimal conditions to manage, then you're in the wrong business.
Yeah, there's like a saying, like a good coach can beat his guys with your guys and could beat your guys with his guys.
Your entire job as coaching is to get the best out of what you have. There shouldn't be an excuse of, oh, well, I need signings before I can implement the style without these players. If that's the case, if you can't implement your style with the players, then you find a system that you can implement with the players. Managers that are so hell-bent on it's my style of the highway are the ones that struggle the most. There's got to be compromise. They have to bend to you and you have to bend to them. And that's the entire part of management. It's the ones that are saying, this is my system, and they keep spending money until they find players that fit that system. They usually don't last very long. It's got to be both ways. So for me, I think there were managers out there who we didn't even go after that could have done better with the squad. Yeah, because I think that Emery's style of football, he wasn't ever gonna. It was always gonna be this way. He was never gonna maybe have us be a bit more technical, have a bit more quality on the ball. It was always gonna be hard work, work ethic, pressing. It was never gonna be stylish on the ball, and he was never gonna allow our players to be that way. I think there's a lot of things that have been written and suggested during his time at PSG that said that he struggled to deal with players who wanted to be expressive because he wanted to stamp it out, and it had to be very, very nailed on, kind of very, very regimented, very Prussian. I just don't think that he's willing to budge, and I think that's why we didn't get the best out of it.
Well put. And if it doesn't work out, there's a guy who's still sitting out there without a job. Be old French guy that knows some of these players, so we can maybe get him back. All right. With that lovely thought, as we said at the beginning of the show, if you weren't with us there, we are thrilled to have Drew and also Nate Smith, who couldn't join us today for the podcast, but we will certainly have him on at some point over the summer. And we're looking forward to seeing how that takes shape. You have our support and admiration, and I'm sure it's going to be fascinating, as is everything that you do, Drew. And I'm not taking the piss right now. I actually mean that. Nate did an Ozil tonight, says Bulgarian Gooner. Thank you to Drew. Anything, one of the other things that we're hoping to be able to do is spread the word about the great writing that you do, and the other media that you do. So why don't we start tonight by mentioning where we can find you? I live in New York.
I mean, you can find me at my Twitter is FMLehr, so FMLEH. RER. And then I write for Your Arsenal. I write for Ekta Liba. I write for a bunch of other outlets as well. And to you and Andy, I'd like to say, danke, dass Sie mich haben. Ich kann es kaum erwarten, mit Ihnen zu arbeiten.
Bitte schön, Fräulein. What does that mean? Thank you, woman.
Thank you for having me, and I cannot wait to work with you.
Awesome, man. The feeling's mutual. Remember, please, to go to www.goonersversuscancer.com. You can also do goonersvcancer.com for those of you overseas who don't put the S in versus. Donations are open, and every cent of your donation, no fees or anything like that, goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Thank you for those of you who did super chat donations in here. As soon as this podcast ends, we're going to accidentally not turn it off, and we're going to talk about how much donations we got. But seriously, I mean, some of those donations were really, really generous. We don't expect that. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to fulfilling our mission of raising as much money as we can for Gooners versus Cancer. Subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to this audio only. Come and check us out on YouTube. It's fun, except when it's not. There's going to be a link over there where you can click to subscribe, and that's about it. Andy, anything else from you?
No, nothing from me. Thanks
Cool.
for having us again, Drew. We're excited to add you to the team, and looking forward to season 4.
Yeah. All right. Come on, you Gooners.